In this video, we'll discuss the founding of another colony, sort of contemporaneous with the early colonies of, and in the 1630s, about the 20 years after Jamestown and Virginia had been established, about the time of the Great Migration of Puritans to Massachusetts Bay, you're going to see the founding of the colony of Maryland. Anyway, before his beheading in 1649, Charles I wanted to get rid of the English Catholics. So in 1632, he gave a charter for new lands in America to a prominent Catholic, George Calvert, known as Lord Baltimore. Calvert had converted to Catholicism. You can see him on the left. The charter was for land just above Virginia, and you can see that would be something that Charles I wanted to do because it could help fill in the areas northward from Virginia closer to Massachusetts Bay. But, Calvert himself, Calvert hoped to create a haven for English Catholics. And he was thankful to Charles I, and so he named his colony after Charles I's wife, Henrietta Mary, so he named it Maryland. They established its capital at St. Mary's. That you can see it's on the west bank of the Chesapeake Bay, very near Virginia, and St. Mary's, as you can tell, it's Catholic. The problem that George Calvert had, Lord Baltimore had, was there weren't enough English Catholics to make a go of the colony. He wanted to have a haven for English Catholics, like Charles I wanted, but he also wanted to make money. And so what he ended up doing was he decided to allow other Christian faiths to settle in his colony. And so they passed the Maryland Toleration Act. If you were other Christian faiths, you could still come and live in Maryland. Well, the number of Protestants quickly grew. Anglicans came up from Virginia, where the Church of England was the established religion, and Quakers came down from Pennsylvania. I'll talk more about the Quakers in Pennsylvania later. And a lot of Puritans came down, and they were very numerous and began to establish a Puritan town they called Providence, which was on the east side of the Chesapeake Bay, on the Maryland's eastern shore. Providence is eventually going to become known as the city of Annapolis, which of course is the capital of Maryland today. I should note that Maryland's state colors are its state emblem on its flag is the shield of the Calvert family. By the 1650s, the number of Puritans was so strong that they rebelled against the Catholic government, and they fought in the Battle of Severn along the Severn River on March 24, 1655. 19 people died and 32 people were wounded. It's kind of a sequel to the English Civil War in the 1640s, if you think about it. But in 1658, however, the Catholic government finally got control again, and once again they established the Maryland Toleration Act. The Puritans, they're not going to have any religious toleration, and so the Catholics retook control in 1658, 3 years after the Battle of Severn, and pretty much for the next 30 years, the Catholic government was the official government with the Maryland Toleration Act, but the number of Protestants continued to grow. And you look at the government during this 30-year period. By the end of the 1680s, majority of the population were Protestants, but they were only a quarter of the governor's council. Finally, in 1689, the Puritans once again rebelled in what became known as Cood's Rebellion, named for its leader, the Puritan John Coode. Coode spread a false rumor that the Catholic government was conspiring with Indians to attack the Puritans. Cood's rebellion was successful, and they actually got help from the other Protestant groups, the Anglicans. And it was then that they moved the capital from St. Mary's to Providence, and then now renamed Annapolis. That was named for the Queen of England at the time, Queen Anne. And as I said, Annapolis remains the capital of the state of Maryland today. This concludes the short little video on the creation of the colony of Maryland. Again, early in American history, or one of the earlier colonies.